Welcome to another Monday Mini Pure Hustle podcast episode. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando. And we got a quick one today. This can apply to anybody, but I think it's going to be more to new sellers. But if you're wondering like, hey, I just made a grip ton of money, right? Somebody had on our YouTube had said, hey, I've been following you guys and I just made $1,000 this last month and I'm only 15 years old, right? Or maybe
that's awesome.
You're 40 something and you just started this as a side hustle and you're like, what do I do with this profits, right? The easy thing to do, you just go like, you know what? I feel like going to Ruth Chris.
Yeah.
I feel like having some steak.
Or I need some new speakers in my car.
And that's okay. Or as Mike, he wanted his drone, if you caught some of our episodes. But here's the thing. You don't want to do that yet. So let's talk about real quick. What do you do with those profits? And the first thing, and this sounds easy, but it's actually tough to do when you see this money, especially when you have a good sale, is reinvesting your business, right? Let's say you just started with $20. You went to a garage sale and you pick up a couple items, right? You picked up a pair of shoes and you picked up a set of speakers and you made $100 net profit off of $10 that you spent. The number one thing you can do is now take that money and go to another garage sale or go to another thrift store and find more inventory, because then you begin to really compound the amount of money you're making.
Yeah, you got to build your inventory out. One of the reasons why a lot of people say like, I don't get very many sales or I don't get daily sales is you just don't have enough inventory. And as you get those sales, the best thing to do is just to increase that inventory, because the more inventory you have, the more eyes you have on your products, the more chances you're going to be selling things. And like Orlando said, it begins to compound. So take that money that you get initially, and especially if you're doing this as a side hustle and you realize I don't need this money right now. I don't need to like pay a bill that like my power is about to get shut off, and reinvest it. Reinvest it first and do this for a long time. When you watch Shark Tank, I love watching like things like that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things the sharks always ask is like, how much money are you making? Are you paying yourself? Right. And a lot of times when you hear the people say like, I've been pouring into this for the last 5 years and I've never taken a paycheck. Right. Those are the companies that the sharks are ready to invest in, because they see that this is a person who's growing it and they're serious about growing it. And if you are to take growing seriously, you'll be surprised at how fast that money compounds, and it'll be easier to pay for yourself later.
All right. Then once you have a good amount of money, you have some inventory, I strongly encourage you to buy things that'll make your business more efficient. So I was, and I still am, like if like say a light box, right? I've mentioned before, and I shared this on Instagram and TikTok and other places, like you can take pictures by just buying a foam board from the dollar store, one white foam board and one white tablecloth from the dollar store for $2. You set it up, you get a place that has bright enough light, you can take a lot of good pictures. Now, that's always going to take, unless you have a place that you can always set that up, it's going to take you time to set that up, pull it down. Things get dirty, things get messed up. You have to go buy some more, or you can invest in, one of the Amazon basic light boxes that's in one of our links below, and they're about $140. But the quality of pictures you'll take with that is definitely worth your investment. Or if you get photo room, right, which is like a $70 charge a year. And so for me, if I were to do things over again, once I have a good enough inventory and I have my capital set up, I would begin to invest my money in things that'll make my business run a lot smoother. Yeah.
When you first start out, you're taking boxes from people. I was taking old newspapers and using that as padding. I was, using printers at work to print labels, like, that kind of stuff, because you're trying to save money and you're trying to. But as you start to sell more and more, you want to become more efficient. And so, yeah, you're going to pay when you start buying boxes off eBay and you start going to American Bubble Boy, link in the description, and buying your bubble wrap and having all of this stuff so you're not, scrounging for things. When you're only selling 1 or 2 things a week or a month, it's easy to do that. But as you start to sell more, you want to become more efficient, and it starts to be worth it. Cost of business goes up, but your total profit goes way up with it as you become more and more efficient.
Agreed. Now, there is a time when you can eventually pay yourself, right? One of the things I noticed is that you can burn out quick. If all you're doing is reselling and you're not using any of that money for things outside of reselling, you can eventually be like, I don't enjoy this anymore, right? But you get the opportunities to go on a nice date night or go out to the movies or get something like that speakers in your car that you've been wanting. Then I think once you reach a certain point where you've made enough money to reinvest, you have capital, you have good enough inventory, you have the equipment to make your business faster, it's about time to pay yourself.
Yeah. And it's great when it's you spend, let's say 6 months building out your store, building it up, and then you start paying yourself and it doesn't hurt. If you spend those first 6 months or however long paying yourself, you're going to be paying yourself very little for a long time, and you're never going to have good payments coming in. So it's almost worth it. You're basically delaying gratification. You're building up the store. You're becoming more efficient. And then when you take a paycheck, it's not hurting the total amount of capital you have to go out and buy new stuff because you're already a smooth running machine. So delay a little bit of gratification and you actually get more gratification later.
Agreed. Now, there does come a certain point where you learned how to source well, right? You know what works for you, but then you've always wondered, like, and especially when you're first starting, you don't want to spend a lot of money on things, right? Because that takes that takes a large amount of capital, right? I mean, especially like if, let's say you're branching out into like Amazon, right? Amazon requires a lot of money up front if you're trying to do merchant fulfilled or Amazon's FBA, especially, sometimes you'd be spending thousands. But here's the thing. Once you've done all those things, right? You reinvest in your business, you have good equipment, you're able to pay yourself, then you can take a little bit more risk, right? Maybe, before you were never willing to buy anything at the thrift that's more than $20. Well, there's stuff at the thrift that you can pay $50, even $100 that you can make good money on. You can do that at garage sales. You can do that at retail arbitrage. So think about now, hey, now that I've made a good enough profit and I have all these other things behind me, now I can take greater risks to make greater profit.
Yeah. And so not only has your inventory increased, your capital increased, but your knowledge has increased too, which makes it easier to make those risks. And the other thing that's really helpful is, you get to a place where maybe you only have $500 capital, right? And so you don't want to, if you have a buying opportunity where someone says, hey, I've got like 30 of these items, they're all the same, you can buy them, it's $500. And you're like, well, that's everything. What if this flops? You're putting all of your eggs in one basket and it could be a failure. But as your company and as your business gets bigger, you can take those risks because if that flops, that's okay because I've got all these other things bringing in money. But maybe that thing takes off. And one of the things that I've heard people say that make a lot of sense is you only need like out of 10 deals, 1 home run, maybe 7 or 8 of them to like get you some steady money, do okay. And then you can have a couple failures. But if that's assuming you've got 10 things going at once. But if you're only going in on one thing, you can't really take that risk because if it's not the home run, you might be in a really bad place.
Agreed. Now, this next one, we're probably one day going to make a full episode on like other things you can do with the reselling money. But, find other streams of income with that money now, right? You have a little bit more money, whether that means, you're just a pure eBay seller, start branching on to Amazon, right? Or private label, maybe that's something you want to do. Or investment, right? You start, researching and learning how to be a good value investor. Or you can gamble and go into crypto. I mean, whatever way you can make other side hustle on top of that, right? And again, I'm not a millionaire, but I will tell you, now that I have multiple streams of income, it's made my life a lot easier. Because if one thing doesn't work well, I can depend on the other. And eventually when those all add up, you end up having a decent profit. So I strongly encourage, once you get to a certain place where you have good enough profits where you meet all the other standards just a little bit at a time, right? Whether that means just buying, $20 of Bitcoin every week or $20 into a stock that you believe is going to do well. Like that in the end will end up bringing you possibly even greater gains if you're able to find those other streams of income.
That's right.
All right. So hopefully that helps you if you're brand new or maybe you're an experienced seller and you haven't thought about what to do with some of the extra money that's laying around. Hopefully you don't have extra money. I'm a big believer to always have your money working at all times. Don't let it just sit in a bank account and accrue maybe only 1%. So with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.